Welcome to the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. The start absolutely critical, Emma. It is indeed, and there's over 140 riders in this race today, so an absolutely packed race field.
Of 3 riders. The 3 riders chasing SS, Mr. X100 and Stefan van Est on your screens at the moment. They are trying to get the gap down. It is, and now our riders just come sweeping down off that hillside. They're down, are going to be alongside the lake very shortly, indeed, up over the water. And this is going to be a key here. Can they push on those gaps? Really have opened up the race lead with Safrazad, with Fink, with Jones, with Knudsen, with Popovic. And you can see Knudsen now. He's been relatively quiet. He's putting a couple of things. He's got Fink on his wheel. Safrazad is just about on the wheels now. Safrazad comes up on the shoulders. Saeed Safrazad, he wants to take the top spot away here. Saeed, 13th in the final last week, not characteristically his type of race where he's normally battling it out for the win. We normally see him in the top 5. Safrazad keeps on opening the gap, and then it keeps on coming back a fraction. This is absolutely desperate stuff on this climb here. Safrazad opens the distance here. The UAE clan team are going to claim top spot in the individual race here as Saeed Safrazad is going to take victory. Hello and welcome to MyWhoosh, to Sunday Race Club, to Qualifier race number 2 on the 14th of August. We had an amazing race last week, and that rewind gives us just a little snapshot of just how exciting it was. My name is Matt Payne. I'm going to be putting words to all of the action today. I'm joined by Emma Martin, who will be bringing in very quickly today because Emma, run through our men's challenge route that we've got here today.
Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are. The course today is very different to last week. We saw a puncher's course last week, and we are back to a more rolling route with a big climb at the finish. So we've got 45k for the men today with 814 metres of climbing. They are going to face one Category 4 climb early in the race, around 10k of this course. And then as we roll into the finish, we have over 50% of today's course climbing, with our Category 2 climb starting at 38.8k today.
It is a real tough finish, isn't it? And I love this course because it's a bit hard in lots of ways. There's not much rest, not much recovery, because in between there's so many bumps that are not categorized on there. And we're going to get a snapshot on the way through with those segments that we've got in again this week. So those 7 segments in there, and the timing is discrete to each segment, isn't it? It's a snapshot of that point in time, with the clock starting as they go in and finishing as they come out of that segment. And that gives us a real window in, doesn't it, Emma?
It does. So today's course for the men's race, you're going to see 7 segments mixed from 1k to 5k. And we'll talk a little bit more about that after we go through the teams.
Indeed. So, Category 1 teams, UAE clan team, the team to beat regularly at the top of the standings. However, Danish Pavlova have been the team who've been taking them on, but they've only 2 riders this week, which means the door is wide open for the clan team to reclaim top spot. But will next PB insured take it? They've come back all guns blazing with Fawcett, with Nair, and with Brun. Don't forget, of course, Yorkshire Pudding Express. You can never discount them. And the Belgian Waffles team, again, looking to take away a top spot. Big tip, though, might well be the Team SZ from Category 1. And I think, Emma, they would be potentially my tip for the top category. Number 1, though, we've also got some newer teams in there with the Saris No Pins and the Italy Castella squad, but they're not going to figure in terms of the team standings because it's just less than 3 riders, and it's 3 riders to count.
Yeah, so we have 8 teams today in our Category 1 race, and 35 riders in total.
And in Category 2, well, Cycle Zone 1, Royal Riders, DS Team and Hubbards, all very, very good teams. But of those teams, personally, I'm not quite sure that I would be putting on my money on any of these teams, because it could be anybody. That is always the thing with Category 2. Personally, I think potentially Hubbards have got a good day today, but the team to beat is going to be the Climbers team and Team Italy B, who have been vying for that top spot, haven't they, Emma?
They have, and it's highly competitive, our Category 2 race, with 55 riders on the start line today and 7 teams. And I think you're right, Matt. I think in Category 2, it's not clear which team is going to come out on top today.
It is definitely a really competitive category and a lot of extra individual riders, which really can mix it up, can't it? And makes those team tactics harder to play.
Yeah, 32 individual riders today in our Category 2 race. And you're right, getting in between those team riders takes points away.
And Category 3, again, strong teams in Category 3 as well. The Team Italy, well, Finati and Martinola, could they be the ones who are going to take this away? The Renegades team are back once again, but CM team, always tough to beat. They're regularly in the top spot in terms of that team category, so it could well be the CM team are the people to beat, but we know that everybody's going to be fighting to take away top spot in that category. And the Category 3, very competitive as well. And we'll see if the Battlers team, a new team with Philip Staples and Eckersley, are going to be able to take away a good ride here. And of course, qualify along with the rest of the teams. Now, also in Category 3, Warrior Men, we've also got the Dango Reality Investment in Colombia team. The UAE Road Warriors are back once again. And, of course, Team Strikers. And of these teams, it's going to be really interesting to see. There's a real battle between these teams. But the Warrior Men, they've been second in the qualifier last week and the winning team in Category 3 last time round. And again, Category 3, really competitive and great fights all the way through.
And isn't it fantastic to see these categories growing? 45 riders in total in our Category 3 race today, 8 teams. So, in total, the team competition in all 3 categories is really hotting up. And we've got newcomers and existing teams really starting to shake it up on the road.
Indeed. Now we're just joining our riders down on the start line with 1 minute almost exactly to go in with Jakob Bjorklund. And this is a very critical part. We talked about it before on the coverage, and we've got a little bit more time today to explain this moments that you run in. You're an experienced e-bike racer. You race on an esports platform regularly. You're regularly on the MyWhoosh. You've raced this race. What's going through your mind at this moment in time?
Well, as you say, Matt, you're on the start line, you're looking at the countdown, and one of the key things to think about is timing your start. The start on an esports platform is really, really important. Getting in that first pack today at the Sunday Race Club is what these riders are going to be thinking about. Not pushing the power too early, but getting the timing right to go off that start line.
And we hit 15 seconds to go. This is the time when they're going to start thinking about getting the moment right. They've got to get timing right off this start line. They're lined up. We've got our 2 screens rolling. Watch these riders from the start line with Jakob Bjorklund from that SZ team. Will he be taking it out from the start? A fast start from him, definitely going up into second position from the start, but very quickly. Riders in the first, second, and third categories coming up. A quick reminder: yellow jerseys. Category 1, we've got our blue jerseys there, our Category 3, and sandwiched in the middle are the green jerseys of Category 2. All these riders started out on a very, very fast start, and it looks to me like 105 riders making it off that start line at the moment. So a packed field. There's always some dropout on the run in, and remember, you've got to get 2 qualifying rides in, and everybody wants prize money because once again, as we announced last week, we have prize money for top riders in each of our categories. It's absolutely critical. If you want that prize money, you've got to finish up in the top, and you've got to get the results verified. Now, this start very quick. Van East is in here, Mr. X100. We can just see Balthazar in here from second category riders, Bjorklund, Vink, Jones, Safrazad all in this mix. And that's what we expect to see. We expect to see everybody pushing up here. The road captain for the UAE team, Mr. X100, he's in here. He's got SS's teammate in here. Just looking, Jones is in, Vink, Phil Graves in here, Simmons is in, Van Est is in. And I think this start, one of the smoothest, fastest mass getaways. And look at the size of that bunch, Emma.
I know. It's amazing, isn't it? But this course is great for that pack start, Matt. And on a course like today, which is so different to last week, the benefit of being in a large pack and taking the draft right the way through to sort of 30k if possible is really what these riders are trying to do.
Well, a big pack is going to move fast. It's going to be a quick race, but you've got to be able to go at that speed. That's why you see riders on the road, training behind a motorbike. We'd jump in behind somebody on a scooter or motorbike, depends on how fast you need it to be. If you're one of the elite squads, it's probably something with a very big, very fast engine in it. But that speed training, being able to ride at pace is critical. It's no good training slowly to keep fast on the course. At the moment, though, you can see that front pack being led out mostly category 1 riders. Now, Ross Fawcett is right in this mix once again. Good to see Fawcett is right up there. And I think we could see a few surprises on the way through, which will be really good to see with some of our riders who are maybe returning, coming back, mixing it up with those established teams. But there's a strong presence from the guys from Waffles, from Pavlova, from the Yorkshire Pudding, and of course the UAE Clan team. Big teams, and they've got big reputations, but bigger they come, harder they fall.
Yeah, and we can still see our category 2 rider in there, and I am going to pull him out because Pino is in there still at the moment, and it was Pino who took the flyer off the start line.
Indeed, and another regular rider who is right up in the mix. I mean, Francis Pino, he was 20th last time around. That's not characteristic for him. He can be a top 3 rider regularly in the standings. In fact, I think last time he was on the podium, as it were, was qualifying number 4, third place there at the team of climbers in the category 2. They are very, very strong.
Yeah, but you've got to remember, Matt, different courses suit different riders. And this course is very different to last week. So we saw a real puncher's course with lots of really steep, short climbs that came constantly at our riders last week. This week, the course is much more rolling. We've got one category 4 climb starting at 9.8k in. And then the terrain is really rolling until we get to 38.8k when we see that category 2 climb to the finish.
Well, I think it's really interesting. We're at 2.8k. Remember, we hit our first rise at 2k, and we're now rolling into the first rise, really off that start line. The gradient shown on the top right-hand side of your screen, we're going to get a category split on the timing, and it does mean that we are going to see a result of 3k from the first of our segments. And at the moment, I think it's Tom Oakes who's gone through with the fastest time, but a lot of riders going through together. But if you look at the top right-hand side of your screen, you can see it's starting to go very dot-to-dot over the top. So Tom Oakes taking the individual win on the way through. Sorry, Gates on the way through there on the climb, going through that ascent. And it is a climber segment as they make their way up and through that. And that is really telling.
It is. And going through that 1k segment in 1 minute 24 seconds is indeed Gates, followed by Svensson, followed by Hoyas, followed by Van Eckhart, followed by Thrall, Mel. And we're constantly seeing more and more riders come through as the back of the field go through that blue banner.
And I think for me, that is really key, isn't it? As we see these riders coming through. Interestingly, it's a second category rider in Tom Gates who goes through taking that. But that shows you it's not necessarily the guys at the front who are going fastest through each segment who'll take that top spot on each segment. It's about who carries the most pace, and somebody chasing it on will regularly go through very quick. Now, race dynamics at the moment, we are seeing a big mass of yellow jerseys on the front. This pack are using this first climb, and I think they're shaking out. They're giving it a big old shake, and you can just see rider after rider starting to drop off. We've still got category 3 riders in there, but they are dropping back off the pace, and the riders have to be careful. Mistakes 100 here in danger. If he drops too far back, he could get caught out, and I think we're going to start to see a little bit of a split in this group if they're not careful, as these riders yo-yo up and down. But at the moment, interested to see that Gates still hanging on in there. And remember, of course, if he can stay until the finish, get that result verified, he could well take the win. But he's got Moreno in there as well. Johan Moreno, one of our regular riders. And right-hand side of your screen, the leaders of the main front group. Left-hand side, though, we are seeing our third category riders, and they're looking good.
They are indeed. And let's not forget, there will be packs, many different packs on the road today in this race, and there will be many different races within this race today as we see our category 1, category 2 and category 3 riders race it out for the win. But let's not forget, Matt, there are other racers in here today who are racing other riders, not necessarily for the 1, 2, 3, but for their own improvement and benefit.
Indeed, I mean, I go back to when I started racing in a club in a time trial league. It was about, I was 11th one week, Paul was 12th, then I was changing it, and Paul would beat me, and he would be like in 13th, but I'd be 14th, and it would swap round. And by the end of the season, we'd know who came out on top and got who was having to buy the ice creams at the end of the year. Now, characteristic for this course, Michael Vick on the attack again. I could sound like a stuck piece of collector's vinyl here. Michael Vick regularly on the attack. Interested to see we've got Vujasin in there as well. Vujasin, another of our regularly aggressive riders with Phil Graves, with Vick. And look at the split that's happening here. They're starting to pull clear. Safrazad in the mix. SS in the mix. But if you move back to Mr. X100 and co, they're 3 seconds down. And this group is splitting, and this could be dangerous.
Yeah, and I think we saw there, didn't we, some 6.5, 7 watts per kilo coming out from the likes of Vink, trying to clear, obviously making a decision that 25, 30 riders in that lead pack was just too many for the start now. And let's put some power down and make that group smaller.
I do think you're right there. I think it is about making that group smaller, and it could well be they're going to lose some teammates as well. Ollie Jones, regular winner Ollie Jones, in the mix. We're watching him on the left-hand side. We've got Ferry on the right-hand side. Now look at Jones here. Really is having to work. He's sitting with this group. He won't want to tow them back up again because Jones, of course, one of our strong riders for that Danish Pavlova score. So Jones, Knudsen and Vink are the usual suspects, the 3 riders who last week took that top spot, and they were right up there in the race overall. 2nd, 3rd and 4th in the race individually, and of course taking that team win. The results from last week's qualifier still unofficial, of course, still waiting verification for all of those results. And our riders currently coming up towards the 6.5k marker. So that's segment number 2. Emma, what stands out for you here?
Yeah, so that is segment number 2. And this is more of a rolling segment than a climbing segment. So a quicker time there with a 1:13 being the fastest through that blue banner by Simeons. And you can see that group. There's 7 riders going through within just over half a second of each other. And then there's a gap back there, Matt. And we're seeing a much slower group, 1 to 2 seconds back. So really interesting to see the times of those riders there and where they were in that group. Because looking at that, that's Jones, Mr. X100, Thrall. I think they were in the chasing category 1 group, not the riders who were pushing on. So this really shows that chasing group have had to push on through that segment to actually catch that front group back.
Indeed, they have, and that shows you. In here we are. We're in with Simmons now. This is that chasing group. They've been trying to pull the gap back down again, but they're in trouble. And interestingly, we've got Svensson in here. We've got Jonas Bjerred. Jonas, very, very fast rider in this group. Vink in that mix. What is going on in this group at the back? I mean, you look at Oliver Simmons. He's regularly up in the mix at the front. He's chasing that lead group, and people have scrambled to get on the wheels. We're on a descent as well, so the speed is right up. We are seeing the speeds in that sort of 50 kilometer an hour marker as these riders drop at about 1.1%. We're just watching Simmons on the left, Ferry on the right, riders who are around about that top 20 in group 2 on the left, the riders at the front of the race on the right-hand side. And as they make their way through this section, that gap has opened, and that time is really starting to stretch out.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Matt, when you're in a big group on this platform, the information we can see on our screens in front of us on the right-hand side, if you've got a group of 25, 30, it's depending upon where you are in that pack, it's hard to keep a track of what's going on in the front 3, 4 and 5 riders if they're not on your screen. And you've got to be really switched on to catch those attacks. And maybe some of our riders were just caught napping a little bit.
Well, I think that may well be the case. One man who we know isn't going to get caught napping, Hassan Al-Ramethri. Once again, Category 2 rider up at the front there. And this is going to be a real battle. Category 2, it is absolutely brilliant. Absolutely love the battles in there. We've got Henning in there. We've got Gutierrez, Maglio, Ilpino in the group. We've got Al-Ramethri making the mix, Giuliano in there. I mean, it really is a who's who of Category 2. And look at the size of that pack on the left of your screen. Category 2 racing. Oh, it's tight. It's competitive. And I'll tell you something, I'm glad I'm not racing with this lot because they look like they mean business today.
Yeah, those Category 2 racers took 9 riders into the last 5K, if I remember rightly, last week, Matt. And it was really, really competitive. And you really didn't know who was going to place where. So it is a really, really competitive category. And it's looking like that front leading pack of that Category 2 race is absolutely stacked with really good riders this week.
It is. It's going to be a very tough place to be. So it's the front of the race. So look at this group on the front right-hand side of your screen. You've got our Category 2 leaders on the left, our Category 1 riders on the right-hand side. Look at the Watts numbers coming out from 300 plus, 200 plus. But the yo-yo up and down as these riders jockey for position in here. Now, just going to take a little bit of a look when we've come through these segments. The riders who are in the team competition as well in this leading group. And you can just see we've got a real mix of riders. The chasers trying to close them down. They've got a big gap. It's about 6 seconds on the road at the moment between this chasing group. Now, Svensson in here, Fumigali in here, Bjarhead in this group. Jones is up the road, currently now 9 seconds up the road. I think that's going to play into the hands of the lower teams. I think they're going to have a few less people chasing behind because they're in that group. Interestingly, though, I think all of the UAE clan team in the main pack of leaders, but we're seeing an aggressive race on the front of the Category 1 with Graves on the attack, Vink on the attack. Category 2, it's just brutal. It's about holding on. And I think some of these riders are going to start to feel the pace because remember, these riders are going to be riding pretty much for some riders. Their watts per kilo, they're going to be on the limit in there. And I think we're starting to see the same happen in the leading groups as well in the Category 1 and in Category 3 at the minute.
Yeah, I think you're right, Matt. And as we're just coming through segment 3 now, so segment 3, one of our downhill segments coming through there, Ollie Jones from Danish Pavlovas in 1:18, and you can see the number of riders coming through in the same times there. You know, pretty much the top 10 riders on that segment within half a second of each other, showing that that pack is now moving at a pretty strong pace. But when you start looking at the teams there as to who's in that group, we've got Pavlovas, we've got the UAE clan team, we've got the Yorkshire Pudding Express, Next PB Insured, Belgian Waffles, as well as Vujasin as well. So it's a real mix. That team race is really, really going to be great today, as well as the individual race.
It is. And remember, of course, today prizes are only for individuals in the qualification, but the teams want to get that prize in. They want that bragging rights. They want that mental domination of being the team to win everything. And that is where UAE clan team was scoring heavily. And now a little bit on the back foot. They've got to regroup. And we know that they can do it. We've seen them come back from some real problems before where they've had riders distance and pulled them back in. But as the team that were the team to beat, they are being challenged consistently right the way through. And that's the great thing. You can see again, right-hand side of your screen, gap opening up on the front, people starting to put attacks in, people trying to push clear and break it up. Left-hand side of your screen, same things happening as we come through. These segment points, just people stretching their legs, just wanting to see who's in those groups. And I think that's just going to continue onwards as we move forward, because as we go in through this course, you've got to remember, it's going to get really, really tough. At the moment, we're at 11K. We're on to the first of our categorized climbs. It's our Category 4 climb, Emma.
It is indeed, and you can see the riders on the right-hand side of the screen. That Category 1 leading of the race is already on that Category 4 climb, and they really are starting to push on there. On the left-hand side of the screen, our Category 2 and Category 3 riders there, we're in with Guven, are not quite there yet, and you can see that it's much more flat where they are. So it's going to be really interesting to see whether that Category 4 climb does anything to our leading pack with that Category 2. You know, there were 15 riders in that Category 2 leading pack, Matt, and it's going to be interesting to see what it's like at the top of this Cat 4 climb.
It is, and our leaders on the right-hand side of your screen in Category 1, the race leaders overall. Again, more attacks up on the front. Vink and Grays going up towards 10 watts per kilo. pushing away again, looking to break this race up. And we've seen a relatively quiet Phil Graves, and he's been quite steady where he's only come out to play realistically when we've been coming in to the finishes. But all of a sudden, you can see the danger being picked up here. Saeed Safrazad on a move across, SS on a move across. We saw Mr. X100 and the UAE clan team are really being left to do the work to close them down. Vink currently at 6.6 watts per kilo. You've got Graves up there at 4.8, and they've put the shot, they basically just turned the throttles off. Once they got caught, they attacked. They got caught by one of the UAE clan team. They're going to ease off. And it's about not taking those strong riders, those strong teams to the finish. It's trying to weaken them before you get onto that final climb. At the moment, we're on 0.5% ascent. We are just making our way in towards the start of segment. I think it's going to be number 4 if my counting is correct. And that means we're going to get another snapshot of just who is in the leading group as they come in and through the line. But you can see at the moment the UAE clan team represented Strength in Death, Safrazad, SS, Mr. X100, all in the mix in that leading group. Graves is up there, but it should be Graves, Ferry, and Odlin. And I think at the moment it's Graves and Ferry who realistically are in that mix. Interestingly, Pavlova's squad, for me, they're going to be really, really interesting to watch. You've only got Jones and Vink. You've only got 2 riders out of a team potentially of 3. Not sure they actually need more than that, to be honest, as they make their way through to really mix up this racing.
Well, let's remember, Ollie Jones was first in the July final and Michael Vink was third. So, real good form a couple of weeks ago in that July final that we saw. But this segment 4 that the riders are on now is the first of our 3K segments. And the riders won't be seeing that finish banner for this segment until they get to 15.5K.
So that's a fair old trek in. So they're going to need to be focused. Meanwhile, left-hand side of your screen, just getting a look back here at our Category 2 riders. And you can just see this bunch is not getting smaller. If anything, I think it's multiplying and getting bigger on its way through. This is going to be really telling, because this group are just taking a great camera shot actually up with the helicopter shot here. We are seeing Johan Moreno just pushed onto the back. Mr. G's making contact as well. But there's a real who's who in there. We've got some new riders in there. So Taiselius in there. We've got Oviedo in as well. Some of our regulars in there. People like Maglio and co. It's good to see Carl in here. Carl coming in to join us on the MyWhoosh platform. But of course, man to watch, Hassan Al-Ramethri, always up in the mix. He is a rider that my highlight pen seems to just gravitate towards when we're doing our notes. And that's for a reason, because he is always in the mix. And I'm sure it probably helps our production team, actually, when they're trying to find the riders. Just look for Hassan. He's bound to be somewhere near the front. It does make life easier with our regular riders. When you're trying to find where the front of each race is, and with 3 categories simultaneously, there's always something happening.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see, isn't it? I mean, I made the wrong call there, because that Category 4 climb has not split that leading 15 in the Category 2 race. So really strong, and looks like there's a lot of riders on form in that race today. They've got a long rolling segment now, Matt, until they come to the final climb. So it's going to be good to see if they can hang together till then.
Well, at the moment, there's some really aggressive racing up on the front. We just saw the riders go over a slight dip, over the rise into the dip. And as they hit that dip, just the group started to fracture. Some really attentive riding. Either that or they're really lucky, because the leading riders in there, people like Vink, but like Graves, are really being aggressive. Hey, you see Phil Graves again on the front. I'm not sure whether he's had some time off. He's not been well. Might have to do some very dodgy internet stalking just to catch up on social media with what's been happening. Phil might just go right up towards where he lives, because he's only about, well, it's a day's ride for me away. But he certainly looks to me like he's back on form and back attacking once again. And great to see he's in action. This leading group, they're strong. They've got some good riders in there. The chasing riders, and this is telling, that chasing group that were behind, they were part of that main group. They are now sitting over a minute behind, nearly a minute and a half behind now.
Yeah, and it is amazing actually how fast a pack can distance riders on this platform. And those riders who have ridden the platform regularly will know that using the downhills and the momentums is just as important.
Well, we just see Mr. X100 go through that line. He went through currently with what was 13 watts per kilo as he went through the line. I'm seeing 13 riders in that leading group now, and I think that is going to be telling. But Mr. X100 taking that fastest time, but he was pushing on as he went through that line, and that means he's got that fastest time. So, on the basis the only rider we can't see there is the Danish Pavlova rider. Pavlova got 2 out of their 2 team in there. Belgian Waffles, well, they've got Van East and Van Den Eekhout in there. They can qualify for the top team, but UAE clan team right in the mix there as well. That's going to be really interesting because they've got 3 riders in the group with Safrazad, with SS and Mr. X100. Yorkshire Pudding Express, 2 riders in there. So that team competition is going to be really, really close a little bit further down. It is going to be dependent on where those third men come in this men's race. Third riders to count as you come in and through the line. Other thing to note, big differences in watts per kilo. 5.6 for Saeed Safrazad, a lot less watts per kilo, a little bit further back. And it tells you just how far back the chasers are. They've only just come through the end of segment number 4, and that's the second group on the road, and coming through 22 seconds slower over 5K.
Yeah, it's the pace of this leading group is really strong. And if they've just come over the line at 15.5K and these riders in the front group are at 16.8 now, that's some distance they've put on them, not just in time, but also in kilometres.
It is indeed. And I think that for me is really telling us it's that once that leading pack really does go, then it's just like somebody's just sort of thrown a hand grenade in and it starts to break. If you don't get back on quick, you're in trouble. Graves at the moment goes off on the attack, goes on the front, gets closed down. You see people chasing behind, and all of a sudden he gets pulled back. SS on the chase at the moment, and look at the splits. So SS currently chasing. We've got Graves and Vink, 2 separate teams. Graves riding for the Yorkshire Pudding Express, Danish Pavlova rider Michael Vink, and you can see as we look back from this group, they've got SS was coming across, but he's in no man's land, and he's going to get caught actually by the group behind, and I think he's going to need that pack to pull him back. We're at 17.4K of the 45 kilometers here on MyWhoosh on Sunday Race Club. At the moment, aggressive riding from Vink, and Graves has seen them pull clear, but the chase is on behind, with the UAE clan team trying to close this down. Repeated work being put in by SS Safrazad and Mr. X100, trying to bring the group back to the leaders. Nobody wants to let a rider go. The racing today is fast and competitive.
Yeah, and we're seeing these riders here, Matt, with a 4-second lead now, and the pack chasing behind. I don't think this is going to stick. I think this back group are going to push back on, and you can see SS now at 8.7 watts per kilo, pulling that group back to those 2 riders. So good attack, I think, but I think it's coming back.
It is indeed, and I'm just watching these riders. There's some serious power being put down, but there's some real yo-yoing in pace. Now, this would suit me as a rider. I would absolutely love this because what I would want to see is attack, pull back, attack, pull back. I'd want to see it breaking up, and I want to see the riders having to come out of the comfort zone, then try and recover, come out of the comfort zone, then try and recover. That's what's happening. Graves and Vink actually at the front, they can sit at a nice steady pace now, because they've gone clear. They're going to be putting that power down. And you look at these 2 riders, they're riding around about that sort of 6 watts per kilo, and they're keeping it fairly consistent. Behind, the riders are yo-yoing. And once again, this UAE clan team are doing the work. And this could be telling when we get into the last climb, that finale of this route, straight up that climb. It's a long way up there. I mean, the climb, official climb itself, just over, I think it's 6 kilometers long. Average gradient is it 8%, Emma?
Yes, well, the average gradient of that Category 2 climb is 6.8% overall. But that's a little bit deceptive, really, because it's actually quite a stepped climb. So you will see steeper segments with flatter segments or even some downhill segments on it for recovery before the riders hit another banked climb. So 6.8% overall over a 6.2K climb. Total elevation of 425 meters in that final climb. But the tactics of how to ride it, I always think are really interesting to watch.
It is, and particularly with these chasing efforts and hard efforts are having to be put in, because every time these riders are having to get out of the saddle, they're having to sprint, they're having to use up those energy stores, they're having to really work those muscles. It's exactly the same thing that they're going to need to do on that climb if that's how they approach the climb. And we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. I think we almost foreshortening the route here, because we've still got plenty of distances to go till we hit the base of the climb. And at the moment, I think just about 18k to the base of that climb. So we're about halfway to the base of the final climb. However, we have already come over the hills. We've already seen the riders getting distanced on the way through. Graves at the front with Vink just being pulled back once again. This group is coming down time and time again. They've rolled their way into our next segment. This is segment number 5 on the way through. We're just going to take a little bit of a split screen look, because on the left-hand side of your screen, we're seeing that battle for our first Category 2 rider. Remember, top 5 riders in Category 1, 2, and 3 all getting prize money in our qualifiers, varying dependent on whether you're Category 1 and whether you're Category 2 or 3, or whether you are 1st to 5th, anywhere from 1,280 right the way through to 10,000 UAD. So it is a pretty good prize money, and you've got to say the AED currency, I mean, realistically, in sterling, depends on the currency. And when you're watching this, don't take my word for exactly how much this is, but it's well over 2,000, 2,500 sterling for the top prize for a Category 1 rider. That's substantial. And it's still nearly 300 sterling for 5th place in Category 3. So not to be sneezed at. I've won brake calipers before. Never mind money like that.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because I am still counting over 10 riders in that lead. Oh, look at that perfect camera shot. So more than 10 riders still in that lead group there, even though they're spread a little bit over the ground on that Category 2 race there. So still all to play for.
It is still all to play for. I have to say, these Category 2 races, they're going so hard. They are catching Category 1 riders who were in that lead group and have been distanced and come back. That is very telling. Vidal Mayer just getting coursed back. We just seen Henrik getting coursed back. I think Jonas is in danger here. Oliver Simmons, Juan Hoyos, they could be starting to get themselves caught back and pulled down by these riders. Now, interestingly, we've got Tom Gates. Tom went with the leaders early. He went up and took the fastest time on the early segment. And now he has that advantage. And at the moment, he's making it pay, because he's still leading. He's in 18th place overall. But more importantly, he's a Category 2 leader. That's worth about 8,000 AED. So I think he's Gates leading. Then it's the chasing riders with our Rumethri and Giuliano. But big time gap back, I think. And Emma, you probably can see that better than me.
I'm not sure. I'm trying to work that out on my screen. But there is a time gap back, and it's going to be really interesting to see if Gates can make use of those Category 1 riders around him and stay clear of that group today.
So we're going to get some time splits on the way through. We'll get an idea of who's moving fast in this group. We're seeing constant attacking. And once again, we're seeing riders at the back of this group just start to suffer. We're seeing Ross Fawcett in trouble. Or Vink, I think, is going to be the next rider who could pay the price. We're coming up to the end of the segment at the moment. In the segment number 5, you can just see the arches going to come into sight here. And as these riders come through, remember, we were at 13 leading riders in the race today. All Category 1 riders, and on the way through, they're just going to hit that line. I think it's now down to 9 riders with a little bit of a gap back to our 12th rider. That is Thrall, who has gone through. So Vink, Graves, Van den Eekhout, Fawcett and Thrall all in trouble here and losing time through that segment. They were at 5 seconds, nearly 6 seconds slower through that segment, and that is very damaging indeed. You can see our leader, though, Saeed Safrazad, doing the fastest time through there. And that's partly because he was at the back going into the segment and right up at the front as they came out the other side. And I think the clan team feeling like they want to get back that top spot. The UAE clan team second in our qualifier number 1. The clan team were second in the final, they had been first in 3 out of the 4 qualifiers in July. And that was big news that they didn't manage to take away a complete whitewash of the places and lost out in that final. So at the moment, it's all out there. They can still be knocked off the spot. And it only takes one rider. If you've only got 3 riders in there to have a bad day and go pop and the legs not work, and then you're going to be in trouble. And this race really aggressive at the moment. 49 kilometers an hour from Saeed Safrazad at the moment. And as you can see, coming out of segment 5 at 22.5k. We're almost in the trough down at the center of your screen. You've got to start to rise up. So at 27.7k, we're going to be going into segment number 6 and then up on to that little rise. It's not a categorized hill, 52 meters of climbing, only 2.6k. That's my kind of hill, nice and short. And then 1.9% gradient, drop down steeply off the other side, chance to make a bit of a gap there, put some pressure on over the top, open the gap, drop out the other side. There's a couple of steep bumps on the way in. And remember, although the final climb officially starts at 38.8k, realistically, you are going to be climbing from about 32k with very little respite. And that makes a difference. And as Emma has said, it's a step climb. You can see the treads, the level sections, and the risers are going to be very telling. That last segment number 7, 5k long, finishes just before the finish as well. So that's going to be really great to give us a snapshot on just who's moving quickly up there. So as we move in towards the 25-kilometer mark for our race leaders here on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club with me, Matt Payne, with Emma Martin, all the team here at MyWhoosh, we are having another great race in front of us. We have the Category 1 leaders currently approaching that 25-kilometer mark, just over half an hour of racing complete. Aggressive race that has brought that group right the way down. It's been taken down. 9 leaders realistically fighting it out for the lead. Little groups behind that have broken off the back of the leading group. Category 2, another big group of riders all together, but they are chasing a solo leader in the shape of Gates. And the last time that we saw Tom Gates was away and had a big lead. Now, I made that gap at about 127 last time, but don't take my word for it. Don't forget, of course, when you go on to the results at the end on the MyWhoosh website, you'll be able to get all of those segment splits as well. And we're just seeing Gates now, left-hand side of your screen here, and you can see he's in amongst the riders. He's in 16th place overall, and he has the benefit. Who is he with? Simmons, Bjorkland, Hoyos, Bjarhead, Mayer. All Category 1 riders. They are going to be a really fast pack, and if he can stay in there, he's not doing his chances any harm at all. Absolutely flying here.
Yeah, to be honest, Matt, if he just stays with that group of riders and sits and takes the toe and the draft off them until he gets to the base of the climb, he could be in a really good position to push hard over that last 6.5k or so and stay clear and take the win in that Category 2 race.
So Category 2 competition, the riders are just making the way through that 24-kilometer mark. The leaders once again breaking up. We're riding on the right-hand side with Ollie Jones. Jones on the back of this pack. He has a gap. He's trying to push his way up and through and move up to the leaders. But at the moment, I think he's a little bit in trouble here. Maybe saving some energy for later. May have put in just a little bit too much early, just having to just rein it in, just get some recovery done. Once again, attacks on the front of the race with Vink and Graves once again looking to break the race up on the front after having taken a little bit of a time off the back of the group and just doing some recovery, going back on the offensive. Well over 7 watts per kilo as they push in and through, and that's making a difference. Jones and Co going to close them down, and that Category 1 competition, the front of the race overall, it is very, very quick indeed. Interesting to see Lionel Vujastin right in that mix as well. Another of our riders who's really worked his way up. And speaking of riders working their way up, our third category riders are with us. Fantastic to see the battle here. Now, this is another great race. And Emma, a great example of why MyWhoosh is so great to race on because these Category 3 riders, they're having a fantastic fight.
They are, and like we said at the beginning, Matt, every single category in this race is highly competitive, and you can see here, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 Category 3 riders with a couple of Category 2 riders mixed in there. Really pushing on, just over 20k travelled, and pushing on for a very competitive race as well.
It is indeed, and I'm just looking at the names there. There's a couple of people who really do spring out. The Londanos who are in there. So Jefferson and Julian, they are riders who are always up in the top spots when it comes to the racing. When they've been out and racing, they didn't have such a good day on the prize money final, interestingly, and on qualifier number 1. It was only Jefferson in that prize money final who got second place. It was a 6th place for Julian. But they are very, very aggressive riders, and they're always up at the front of that Category 3 race for the Warrior men. Will they be able to repeat it? Well, we've got a little distance to find out.
So if you are watching the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club for the first time today, and you're watching our Category 1, Category 2 and Category 3 races and thinking, I'd really quite like to join that and have a go, get yourself onto the mywhoosh.com website, download the app, and follow all the information on there under the events segment of the website. You will find out how to sign up to the event. You will find out how to register for the Sunday Race Club. And there are a number of important documents that you will need to read. You'll need to take a look at our technical guide, our rule set, and the frequently asked questions is always a great document to read before you take the start line on the Sunday Race Club. The MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club is about fair and transparent racing. And to ensure fair and transparent racing, there are a number of rules and regulations you need to follow. So we are sure that your ride fits the criteria.
Indeed, and that for me is the key, isn't it? It's getting that information. I always read the FAQs first because generally that tells me everything I need to know. But it is worth reading. It is worth knowing the verification process, making sure that you know what you've got to weigh, where you've got to check out the weight when you've got to do it, and all those details in there. Don't forget, of course, the MyWhoosh Indoor Cycling Facebook page is a great source of information as well. Of course, there's lots of help on there as well, and lots of the members of the Sunday Race Club there to look after each other as well. And of course, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of race banter as we build that up over the next few months as we run in towards in the Northern Hemisphere. Winter in the Southern Hemisphere, it's going to be summer. A good friend of mine out and riding over in Australia at the moment in full tights and full jacket, whereas in the UK we're currently experiencing what is for us a heat wave. Nowhere near the temperatures, of course, where the guys are out and racing. And, of course, the UAE land team down in the Emirati area, is, the Emirates is absolutely scorching at the moment. And I'm sure they're keeping out of the heat and in the pain cave and trying to keep cool. It's going to be very interesting because that heart rate does drift the warmer you get, and that is something that's really critical, isn't it, Emma?
It is. My recommendation is invest in an exceptionally good fan wherever you race on an esports platform in the world.
Is that somebody who sort of jumps up and down with pom-poms and shouts your name lots?
No, that's something that sticks out a lot of air and goes very fast and whirs and cools you down dramatically.
Oh, well, until you got to the cools you down bit, I thought that was me with a lot higher, but there you go. Right, so yeah, big fan, absolutely critical, pushing out volume of air, keeping cool. Heart rate drift happens. It happens when you get hot. You then lose performance. Your performance drops off. So keeping cool is key. That's why you see a lot of the teams. So the UAE teams, the men's and women's team, when they're racing in hot weather, they will actually use an ice vest, a cooling vest that will keep that body temperature, the core temperature down, particularly on anything like a time trial. Pre-race, they'll keep that core temperature down, trying to keep cool as long as is possible. And that is really, really important. And the same thing happens when you are racing. You want to be cool. You want to not just be cool mentally. And some of these riders I certainly wouldn't want to play poker against because they are super cool cucumbers. But also, you've got to stay physically cool and keep that temperature down. Once it goes up, your performance drops. Same with hydrating. So lots going into it. But if you want to just come on, jump on and ride, don't worry, you can do that. You don't need to be racing with these Category 1 riders.
No, and I would really recommend, even if you did want to race with these category riders, Matt, on the Sunday Race Club, that you jump on and ride and you understand the dynamics of the platform. Because that, again, riding on the Sunday Race Club, the tactics are based around how the platform rides and learning and understanding how momentum works, how drafting works, where to push on, where to sit up, where to take a micro rest. All of that is really important.
It is, and you can just see Thomas Thrall, the rider in 10th place. We said we got to 9 in the group. Thrall is really working. He's at 6 watts per kilo going up and over the bridge at the moment. And as he makes his way over the bridge here, he's got Bart van den Eek out on his wheels. They are a long way ahead of the chasing riders. But they're 26 seconds down on the leading 9 riders, with Graves at the moment sitting at the back of the group. Our leading second category rider at the moment, that is going to be Tom Gates. Behind him, Gutierrez is the rider chasing. I think that's 148 down, if my eyes are to be believed, but take that with a pinch of salt at the moment. But the man who's definitely doing it is Gates. Now, Thrall here is working hard. He's really trying to push on. He's got 2 minutes 20 back to the chasers behind, but he's given away 26 seconds. Now you can just see the gaps here now. Vajassin on the front starting to accelerate. And Lionel Vajassin, experienced esports rider, Emma.
Yeah, he is indeed. Vajassin was 5th this year in the Esports World Championships, along with other riders in our Category 1. So Jones and Brune were also in the top 20 in that World Championships this year. So some really class esports riders in the mix today.
There is indeed, and we can just see Thrall, Van den Eek out just trying to keep this gap down. They're still racing for what is potentially a top 10 position. And of course, when we hit that climb, we've seen it. We've probably, a lot of us experienced it. You're having a great day and you just hit a really long climb. And all of a sudden, the man with the helmet goes, boom, down you go. And that's it. Legs fall off, head falls off. Occasionally you fall off. And then it's all over, and riders have come past you one after the other, and that's terrible. It's one of the most painful things that could happen, because you think you're going well, and then riders like Thrall, Van den Eek out can actually make a move on and move up through there.
Yeah, we've seen riders go into that climb in the front pack at the end of the climb be 2.5 minutes back, and other riders who weren't with that lead group going in make time on those climbs and actually come through the pack and make 3, 4, 5 places in that final 7k.
Definitely, and I think we're going to see at the moment potentially the riders not wanting them to come back. Interesting to see Mr. X100 just rolling up onto the front of this group, but look at the numbers: 4.5, 4.33 point some watts per kilo. Little bit of a truce being called, I suspect, as they come in and through at the minute.
Yeah, I don't disagree, because whilst you're looking at the power math, I'm looking at the heart rates, and having watched these riders for some weeks racing, those heart rates are really comfortable at the moment, telling me that these riders are in a really steady state and they've got a long range that they are able to use when they hit that final climb.
Well, that's really interesting, having that range with X100 just almost just keeping his legs awake, I think, at the moment, just by kicking off the front there. Nobody on that group responding, but I can't imagine it's going to be long before we see some kind of aggressive attack. But that is, of course, playing into the hands of the riders behind if they can keep a good pace. Thrall and Van den Eek out, though, not closing the gap down now, out to 30 seconds. They're losing time to the riders in front, and just as importantly at the moment, they're losing time to the riders behind them. So that is making a big, big difference here. So these riders at the moment are having to push on because they don't want to get closed down. But remember, of course, those time gaps and the distances and the positions can all change. Very rolling cost. 32.2k covered at the moment for Thrall as they go through, and you can see left hand side of your screen Mr. X100 leading his UAE clan team mate in and through. The 9 leading riders all through that line, and now come the chasing riders behind, with Thrall and Van den Eek out rounding out to the 10th and 11th places there. But look at that time gap, Emma. 6, in fact nearly 7 seconds back.
Yeah, so let's just clarify this. So this is the segment number 6. It's 5k in distance, and those top 9 riders have pretty much gone through that segment in 7 minutes and 9 seconds. Back, though, Van Eek out and Thrall have taken 7 seconds longer than that leading pack to cover that 5k segment. So they've not just gone into it behind them, Matt. They've they've actually travelled that 5K 7 seconds slower than that leading group. So that leading group are extending their lead over 10th and 11th place there.
And when you look at the heart rates, it's very interesting what you're saying, Mr. X100 SS, 133 beats respectively. And they ride together regularly as well, which is really telling. I think very well matched. And going out with a training partner who's well matched, it has its advantages because you can just push each other on.
Yeah, and we're seeing riders' heart rates there in that front group, 133, 150. Let's not forget, heart rate is very individual to a rider, and the maximum heart rate can vary dramatically. I know some riders who are in their 40s and can still get their heart rate up to around 200 beats per minute. Others who are at 165 are blown completely. So it's very individual, but looking at those riders and those heart rates through that segment, it was a comfy 5K, I think, for them before they really pushed those heart rates to the limit.
I wish I could ride a comfy 5K in that time on that terrain, I have to say. I think it's going to be a very interesting finale while riders just resting, recuperating, making sure that they pick their moment when to attack. So remember, officially this climb is starting as we come in towards that 38K marker, but you can tell by the gradient, the riders on your left-hand side, it's still slightly climbing. Not a lot, it's fractions of a percent, a little bit of a dip now, but we're going to find as these riders continuing was basically the only way he's up. So we'll see who's going to take that. Ferry starts to wind it up. Immediately covered Mr. X100 onto the wheels. They won't want to give away this prize money. They won't want to lose a top 5 spot. The UAE clan team, of course, a lot of pride there. They want to take back the top team competition. They have got 3 riders in there. Now, just looking at segment number 6 results, Emma just pointing out, I think a little bit of something happening back there, Emma.
Yeah, so really interesting. Whilst our chasing groups have started to go through the final blue banner on segment 6, actually what we're seeing is some of those packs behind, so Bjarnhead and Bjorkland from Team SZ, actually setting the quickest time through that 5K segment number 6. So coming through 2.5 seconds quicker over that 5K segment than the leading group. So interesting to see that they've not given up at the back there and they're still pushing on.
And the heart rates 154, 176. If you compare it to the 2 below, massive difference. But 2 Swedish riders together on the same team, and we just see it on the left-hand side of your screen here, currently sitting in 13th, 12th and 13th positions at the moment. So going to be interesting to see if they can maintain that. Behind them, Tom Gates, in fact, the leader of the second category competition, is about 15 seconds down with 4 sets. So these 2 won't want to get caught from behind. If they push on now, they are going to have another good top 15 position. And I think the Swedish team mean business. They've come in, and we saw 1, maybe 2 riders. Now we're seeing that full team complement coming in. And I think they could be a force to be reckoned with when we come into the final at the end of the month.
Yeah, and Matt, that category 2 pack have just gone through that blue banner on the segment and they are moving even faster. So really, obviously not liking the fact that the first place in the category 2 is up the road, and they are working really strongly to try and pull that back.
Well, Tom Gates going clear in category 2, going away with the leading group and able to hold on the longest of anybody. But as you can see on your screen at the moment, exactly what Emma was just saying. Aaron Messley, Caligula, Hennig, Giuliano, Spratt, Taiselius, Oija, Cross, Avedo, they are all that same group. They're all pushing on and they're all trying to close the gap down. Left-hand side, you see Hassan Al-Rumesri in here. The rider, I think, potentially, who we would expect to be number 1 or in the top 3. He might be number 1 on segment number 6, but he's got to close down on Gates. That time gap is critical.
It is, and we keep talking about races within races, and this here really shows that category 2 chase pack are racing really hard for that win.
Indeed, and a lot of the Team Italy B riders in there as well, which I find really interesting. The Team Italy B with Maglio, Caligula, Moreno, Avedo, all wanting to push right in there. And they work so well together. Remember, because these teams, they have communication between each other. They're going to be talking to each other. They might not be in the same physical location, but they're able to communicate. They'll use something like Discord or similar, WhatsApp group call. A lot of people doing that to be able to communicate and to be able to work out who's going on the attack, who's feeling strong. Can we push the pace up? Am I going to drop my teammate? Really interested to see now. Turn our attention from category 2 to category 1. Mitch Ferry, right hand side of your screen. He's continuing to attack. So with both screens up at the moment, our chasing group trying to close down Gakes, who's the rider off the front on the left hand side of your screen. Right hand side of your screen is our race leader, Ferry, just being pulled back once again. Who's done the work to pull them back? Mr. X100 and SS, the UAE clan team. They're all over this. The question is, are they going to be all over this and find they've done too much work closing down riders when we come on to that really tough section of climb? They're not that far away. 37.2k, now 37.4k, sorry, for the leaders as we come in towards the junction. We go past that T-junction, and it's an indicator we're coming into that final section of the climb.
It is, and on the left-hand side, I've had to think there for a second. On the left-hand side of your screen there, we are back in with Tom Gakes, and he's got company now, but company from those Category 1 riders. So he's doing a really good job of sitting in that pack with those Category 1 riders. And looking at that, Matt, that start that he had today has been absolutely essential to his placing in that Category 2 race.
And some riders are able to do that. They're able to go really hard from the gun and hold a fast pace, then do some recovery. What he's got to be careful of here, I think, we've got Bjorkland, we've got Enco, who are working hard, and they're going to try and close down on the leaders who we see on your screen. Mitch Ferry's aware of this. I think he's pushing on, but watch this chase coming behind Mitch. What is the rider, the team? Who is it? What is it? It's a chase down. It's a chase down by the UAE clan team. And once again, SS and Mr. X100 doing the damage here. Is this a concerted tactic? Because we're in with Saeed Safrazad at the moment, and Saeed is a rider who could take victory at the top of the climb. He's got that, and he has not been doing the chasing. He's the rider who I think may well be their protected rider for today.
Yeah, and those team tactics, we talk about them, don't they? It being really, really important. It's not just about the dynamics individually in the race, but it's the dynamics that the teams create in the race. And like you've just said there, Saeed Safrazad has been sat there, he's been quiet. We've seen SS and Mr. X100 going off the front, putting the pace up, closing the gaps, with a teammate sat comfortably in that pack, just monitoring what they're doing and staying in position.
Yeah, very smart riding on the way through. So here on the Sunday Race Club on MyWhoosh, our riders making the way in and taking the turn into the final climb. Here, remember, our race distance, 45 kilometers. The total climbing today, 814 meters. Lots of climbing to do. Our riders at the moment are really having to push on, and you can just see they are starting to tee up for position. This is where there's no hiding places. There's no getting extra draft. There are one or two downhills on the way, but this first section of the climb is critical. So the moment we come around that T-junction, the riders know that once they hit this red rider graphic on the right-hand side, they're going to hit this section. The riders have wrecked this. They've raced this. These are the best of the best. And Vujasid, a rider, as Emma was saying earlier, top 5 in the World Championships. He's got his work cut out as Vink goes on the front of 7.6 watts per kilo. So Vink is putting a push on. He's got Mr. X100 closing him down. You can just see he's just got straight up onto the wheel. He's not letting him go. And this is where it's going to get interested. And look at this. I think I'm going to get proved wrong here if we're not careful, because I think Saeed Safrazad is in trouble here because he's a little off the pace, but SS even further back, and that might just be all the work he did closing those gaps down.
I'm not sure. I'm seeing Saeed Safrazad really close that gap now. I've seen 8 watts per kilo, 9 watts per kilo. You know, it might have started to break there, but there was no way it's not going to be part and parcel of that. And we're seeing SS right now closing that gap back to that group, and probably, I reckon, that's going to be a catch as well.
Oh, here he comes. He's pushing on here. He's got to get on the wheels. This is where you've got to dig. You've got to put the pressure on. You can't let that gap go. It's so painful. You're holding on the bars. You're pulling with everything you've got. Here he comes. And I think he's going to rock it right the way through. Hello, boys. I'm back. We've got the UAE Clan Team SS's back, but he's look at this. He's got to get this timing right. That easing off of the pressure when you're tired and you put a big effort. Fine-tuning that and finessing that is terribly hard to do so that you waste no energy.
Yeah, the snowballing through the group is really difficult to manage sometimes, and that's what riding on the platform is all about. You need to practice these things.
And he's coming off the back again because of that yo-yoing and the pressure put on. Vink and Vujacin in the 7 watts per kilo. Van Heesty's in here. Stefan Van Heesty's doing a great ride here. He's not always at the very front of the race, but Stefan Van Heesty is going to be in here. SS being distanced here. Ferry, I think, could be in trouble. He's about 4 seconds back at the moment, but the race is really on here at MyWhoosh. Another big dig over the top there. Now, Graves is holding in there at the moment. Phil Graves, a regular on the podium. He's in the mix. So, Mr. X100, Michael Vick, Lionel Vujacin, Ollie Jones in here. Now, Jones comes to the fore. Another rider who we've not seen doing lots of work, the Danish Pavlova rider, regular winner on the platform. 2 wins in the qualifying on the way through, winning the final as well. We're going to see if he's going to do it. The Pavlova squad are super strong when they put their mind to it. Only 2 riders today. Do they need more than 2 riders? Well, the squad from the UAE Clan team came with strength in depth, but they've burnt up SS. I think he is in danger of getting blown to pieces here on this climb, but he's trying to work his way back in, and Vujacin is not wanting to let them come back easily here. It's the same with Van East. They are looking behind them, I think, here, and they are being very smart because they are putting the pressure on as they come up over the very top of the climb, and that means that as they go over the top, they can carry that momentum through.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing SS dropped here 33 seconds back with Mitch Ferry. So that's 2 riders out of this front group now.
So that, with even my rudimentary maths, it makes that 7 riders in the leading group. I don't think it's 7, or is it? It is. It's not 1 and 6. It's definitely 7 back together again. I was about to say Vink got off the front, but that's how fast the action is coming here on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. It's Mr. X100 on the front now. He closed that gap back down, but we're seeing Jones pushing up, Van Ace pushing up here. Everybody wants to be at the front of this race. 41.2k covered, 45k total race distance here on MyWhoosh. We're coming up to an hour's racing, and there's nowhere left for these guys to hide. They cannot make this. There's no bluffing. You've got to show if you've got the beans today, because this is where it's going to count. Mr. X100 is pushing on here. And interestingly, that heart rate that was 133, it's up to 156, which for Mr. X100, that's quite a high heart rate for him, a regular on the platform. And you can see at the moment, he's pushed at the right time. He's gone in that group, but he's now got to go with them as they come up onto this next section. 4% and climbing. Our next step is on its way in towards us. So here on the Sunday Race Club, we are watching the race lead. This is where the action's going to be. We're at 8%. Emma, cracking racing, and it's going to get even better.
It is. We are ticking up, Matt. We are now at 9%, 9.5, 9, 8. The gradient is really hard, and they're coming around the top of this road, and it's going to flatten out for a bit of recovery as it drops dramatically to less than 0.5%. So some immediate micro rests and micro recoveries going on, because you can see we're in with Vink at the moment, and it's dropped back to 4 watts per kilo.
Well, 4 watts per kilo, but they're going to kick it back up again, and then they're going to drop it down. This is racing. This is not just a steady state training session. You want a training session, jump on MyWhoosh, onto the platform. Hundreds of great workouts, but this is racing, and this is where all those workouts have to count. Who's got that training right? Who can ride this platform? Another big attack off the front here, and I think it was all to do with momentum. Justin did that just on rolling through alone, but look at the next ramp coming up in front of them. It just kicks in, and it's sudden. It's almost instantly going from -2 to 8%. And now Mr. X100, 9 watts per kilo. He's got on the attack. He rolls it over the top. Hey, look at the shut off there. He shut it off as he went over the top. It then kicks again. He's carried momentum through. Has he got the timing right? They're into the tunnels. We are at 2.5k to go very shortly. Well, that means 2,500 meters of race action left at the very front of the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. This group that was a huge pack from the start, containing first, second, and third category riders, was whittled down. They got rid of all the third category, then the second category, and the leaders have gone down from 30 to 9, and now we are seeing that 9 being blown apart by the hillside. 6 riders, I think, left in the mix realistically, because I think Stefan Van Est is the next casualty on this terrain.
I'm looking at Van Elst at the moment, and he's putting out 7.8 watts per kilo. He really doesn't want to get distance on this climb, but he's 3 seconds back from this group now, and this group are pushing on. They themselves are doing 6s and 7 watts per kilo as they come over the brow of this climb to a small bit of rest before this course kicks again.
So minus 4% descent into the next kicker, the next leg breaking, lung burning ascent. This is where every muscle is going to hurt, because you can just see there's some really low revs going over. You've got to carry your speed, you've got to carry your momentum through. Who's going to take that prize money? 5 prizes, 6 riders. Someone's going to miss out on the prize money in qualifier number 2 here in August. Next tunnel, and Fink is going into it hard here. He's in the front of the race.
He is indeed, but Van Elst has made it back to the pack using the momentum of that downhill, has slingshot him back into the group. So this group was 6 and it's now 7 again.
So 7 riders, 6 of them chasing Fink. Fink on the aggressive move, putting the power down, looking to take this away. The Danish Pavlova rider, no stranger to the podium. He's continuing to kick. His last win was in qualifier number 4 in July, not all that long ago. Has he got the strength to hold them off? 43.5k on the clock for Phil Graves, but he's not at the front of the group. That's held by Mr. X100. 10% climb coming in. This is about this final run now. We have just over 1 kilometer to go. 45k in total, the race distance. And Vujasin's heart rate, he's not your 130 heart rate rider, not 150, not 180, he's 191.
Yeah, and that is higher than he went last week. I clocked him at 186 the other week. So Vujasin is really, really working to stay in this group, because you're right, Matt. There is 1.2k to go here. So, and there are 7 riders and 5 prizes.
And remember, all these riders, not only are they riding for the prize, they're riding because they are racers. And we're racing here on MyWhoosh. Category riders, in category 1, all of that top group coming in and through. And look at that. We've got Vujasin, Mr. X100, Jones, Safrazan, Fink, Van Est, and Graves coming through. And Graves appearing on the screen slightly later means he was a little bit behind. And you can see 6 seconds slower through that segment. He has lost time. Vujasin, the fastest through the segment on the attack, 183, the average heart rate for that section. But this group is together. So left-hand side of your screen, we have now got less than 1 kilometer to go. Remember, riders can sprint generally about 200 to 300 meters. It depends, though, on the terrain, and this is not easy, particularly that final run to the climb.
No, it isn't. We've come out of the tunnel, we climb, we drop, we climb to the finish, and using that momentum off that descent as we run into this finish is where we see these riders really push and attack.
And this is about making sure you get this timing right. Vujasin, I've just seen at 10 watts per kilo. He's continuing to push. This is the run for the line. It's really tricky. We're going to come up. We hit another tunnel. Vujasin leading this out. Now, we've seen riders run clear to the finish from the entrance to the tunnel. Jones has gone with him. The nearest rider is Mr. X100, who's being mobbed here. Saeed Safrazad has had comeback of the year, I think, on the way through. He's made his way back up into the mix here, and they're all back together again. It's going to come down to these last 200 meters. It's going to be very, very fast on the way in. This is going to be almost a sprint finish. They drop down. Now comes the kick. The gantry's at the top of this climb. Who's going to get it? So tight coming through. Mistakes 100 takes the win, I think, as he came through. Saeed Safrazad, I think, was in second place. What a finish. So fast we could hardly see them coming through, and it's confirmed. So look at that. 2 UAE clan team, 2 Danish Pavlova, the Belmont Jump Waffles rider, and then it's Vujasin in 6th place. So Mr. X100 takes the race win. He almost freewheeled over the line because he did it on momentum, knowing how to ride. is key. Smart riding there, taking the win. Said Safrazad getting pipped by his teammate there by 0.089 of a second. Then it was Ollie Jones and Michael Vink in third and fourth place for the Danish Pavlova squad. Phil Gray's just about to make his way in through the line. He's going to come through in seventh place. I think it's going to be third place and potentially the team win here today for the UAE clan team, because I think SS is on his way into the line. So Mr. X100 in first place, Said Safrazad in second, Ollie Jones in third, Michael Vink in fourth, Stefan Van Aust in fifth, Lionel Vujassin in sixth, Phil Graves in seventh. Remember, these are live times at the moment, with Phil Graves just coming in and through. Those live times will be unofficial times first of all, so they'll show on the results page on the MyWhoosh.com website. Unofficial first of all, and then the results will be verified. All of the data checked, and then they will become official results. So, at the moment on our live screens, a win for Mr. X100, taking away first place. He's also going to lead his team home, because we have SS for the UAE clan team, the man who did all that work early on, closing down the riders with Mr. X100 protecting Said Safrazad, and that set them up for a 1-2. But Mr. X100 too strong today for everybody else comes in and through. Interestingly, really smart heart rate on that as well. Now, Mitch Ferry comes through for the Yorkshire Pudding Express in ninth place. And of course, this is the battle for Category 1. These riders are absolutely flying. And if you look at that really smart riding there, the watts per kilo key, Phil Graves, 4.7 watts per kilo. He's been very, very smart there, sitting back, but great racing, Emma.
It is absolutely fantastic racing, and as you quite rightly mentioned there, Matt, one of the racers I know will always tell me that the smartest rider rides the least watts per kilo to win the race. And but it really shows different types of tactics. We talked about drafting, we talked about attacking, and you can see who's really been at that attacking. You know, SS there at 5 watts per kilo average, Said Safrazad at 5.7. Some riders like to go up, down, others like to stay steady and stay hidden, and we've seen different tactics today to get to this finish.
We have indeed now. Great to see Bart Van den Eyck out. That's a great ride by him. Comes through. He's going to take 10th place here today. So Van den Eyck coming in 10th place. That's matching his finals position in the July finals. And we know he's definitely a contender. Good to see Thomas Thrall back and racing there for the next PB Insured squad as well. And certainly looking good as they came in and through. He's in 11th place. Now we're in with Tom Gates. Gates has put in a storming ride. He's at 43.3k here. Now, Hassan Al-Ramesri is chasing him. That's going to be a really interesting gap behind. How close are they going to get? What power can they produce? And how fast can they get to Gates? I think going to be interesting to watch Gates as he is up against the rest of the riders here today.
It is indeed, and we've got the top 11 through the line at the moment, but Gates isn't that far back. I think I caught him in 14th place. So actually, no, look at that. He's currently in 16th, and Hassan Al-Ramesri is closing in as we're now 43.6k into this Category 2 race.
And we said it was all about racing here on MyWhoosh, and it's happening today because Tom Gates went for a flyer. He stayed in with that leading group, but has he done too much too soon? Hassan Al-Ramesri, top tip, on his way up onto the wheel of Gates. Gates knows he's coming behind him, and it could be heartbreak for Gates as they come up, as Hassan is sitting there smoothly. He's coming on his wheel. Spratt and Hainig are behind. Here he comes. The catch is going to be made. And Hassan Al-Ramesri has made the catch. Category 2. That was like minutes, but we know on this climb, you can be good on the rolling hills. You hit a big climb. I speak from personal experience. You go straight out the back.
Yeah, and Hassan has gone over the top, but Gates is responding. And let's just see how these two battle it out, because Tom Gates has responded to Hassan Al-Ramesri, and I'm not sure who's going to take this. It could be a very interesting final K in this Category 2 race.
Well, remember, you've got Gates, who has been caught, so that you'd think the momentum would be with Hassan, but Hassan has had to put a massive chase in to close down on Gates. Gates has been riding at pace. Behind them, if they hesitate, Heining is on his way. Marcelo could be up there. The Brazilian rider could close down on Remethry and Gates. So this could really come down to that last little section behind. Then you can see Sprite is not all that far behind.
No, and you're right, because Heining is putting a real effort in whilst Gates and Arametre are looking at each other.
Well, I think I'll be doing more than looking at each other. I'll be going, come on, this is crazy. I can't believe we're going to have to sprint this out, but they could. And that is how close this is going to be as they make their way up this climb. Remember, these riders, Gates and Arametre, they've got the established rider Arametre regularly up at the top of the standings. Gates, though, is aware of this. And
look behind you, Matt. The rider Marcelo is coming, and that catch is going to be made. They sat and looked at each other for too long, and that rider in third place was 13 seconds back, and they're now going to be joined by him.
Oh, it's going to come down. This is what we love. It's getting closer and closer together. Look at it. It's come back together again. Hassan, after doing the work, is in danger of being caught because Gates has been caught by Heinig, and those riders could all come back together again. This is not over by the time they come in through the finish. Let's see who's going to take this now. Hassan Arametre has got the lead in category number 2. Gates is behind. Then it's Heinig, and then it's Spratt. Once again, before we get into this last kick in to the finish, a quick reminder. Make sure you catch up with all those results on MyWhoosh.com. All the results at the moment are live. They will be unofficial until they're verified, and you'll see that on the screens now. Hassan into this run down. He's got the gap. He made the catch. He's on his way. Now comes that final section of climb. Gates is trying to close, but Hassan Arametre, he took away the win. He deprives Gates of first place and pushes him down to second position. And as we scroll down, it's Arametre taking top spot. It's Gates in second, and it's Heinig in third place as they come through. I can't wait to go on to the split times for the segment 7 because, my goodness, that was an incredible climb by Arametre, who never gave up on there. There's some real sterling work there. Spratt comes in and through. He's going to take 4th place on the way in. So let's see who is going to take away top spot as they come in and through the finish. Who will be the rider who is going to be at the very, very forefront of the racing as we go in towards our finals? It is going to be great to watch all of these results come in. The big question is going to be, though, who's going to take away those team prizes and who can recover for next week's racing. Is going to be really, really busy as they run in and through. And I think at the moment, this race wide open. So let's see what happens as we run in. And don't forget, you can catch up with all of these results. MyWhoosh.com, click on results. It's also your home for picking up all of the information on the way through. So amazing racing in our men's race. And remember, make sure you tune in for the women's race. From myself, Matt Payne, from Emma, and from everybody at MyWhoosh. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.